Thanks to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. The Magic the Gathering World Championship is the game's most prestigious event. Don't get me wrong, winning a Pro Tour is a spectacular feat. The combination of grit, grinding and luck, all culminating in a showdown of spells and savvy, has captivated me since it began. But since 1994, before the Pro Tour as we know it even existed, Magic has crowned a world champion. Much like Worlds 1996, when the PT itself started, Worlds is heading back to Seattle this year. That year, the R&D officers moved some tables around to give the best players in the world the play space they needed to find out who got to be called the best player in the world, at least for a tournament. While sadly, we will not be literally returning to Wizards of the Coast office space despite me asking them personally to, and it's unlikely an upstart young Australian will claim victory against an American powerhouse player like what happened in the 90s, Worlds 31 in Bellevue will be the capstone event in a rollercoaster competitive season. Gone are the powerful Bloomborough Mice and other standard powerhouses that inhabited the first two events of the year, and gone now too is the Little Wizard and his bowl of soup that took over Standard shortly after. Between the shakeups in Standard and the brand new Avatar Limited format, this World Championship should be a doozy. Notably, the first 2 days of the event are slightly shorter than a usual Pro Tour would be, and the balance of limited to constructed rounds is as close as it's ever been. So while the tradition of standard best of fives will still be in place on Sunday as we whittle down to a single remaining player, competitors will need to demonstrate the same balance of limited and constructed mastery they have all year, with even tighter margins than before if they want a shot at being the next world champion. Magic has been shaped by 4 powerhouse teams this season, and as expected, we'll see many names from those places on this list. Between the talent and recent results of Handshake Moxfield, the veterans of TCG player Ultimate Guard, the elite Japanese contingent of Moriyama Japan, and the pure firepower of Team Cosmos Heavy Play, you'll find plenty of faces from across these 4 places, as well as a few other players, some of which have no official or any association at all. Whether you like a household name or a lone wolf, there's endless players to cheer for as we count down to the last and biggest event of the year. With basically 2 new formats on deck and less than a week until the tournament begins, I thought I'd give you all a crash course in who's worth watching this Worlds. We won't get everyone, but here's 20 players to watch at Worlds 31. If you've watched my channel before, you're presumably very aware of just how good France has been as a country throughout the lengthy history of the Magic Pro Tour. I mean, a French player was in the finals of the first ever Magic World Championship in 1994, and 16 years later could finally lay claim to the title of Magic World Champion in 2010, as 2 Guillaumes battled to keep their personal naming rights and the honor of France with them, along with a healthy bit of prize money and eternal Magic glory. 13 more years went by, and Jean-Emmanuel Duprat became the second ever French World Champion, simply the latest success in the long lineage of the nation's Pro Tour history. Jokes aside, JED is one of the more recent world champions who's had a decent but not standout Pro Tour season, and will be looking to bring the trophy back from one part of Europe to another. He's also had his world champion preview card shown off already, and it looks unbelievably good. While Lawn Eclipsed is a little ways off now, Formidable Speaker is quite the addition to the new wave player spotlight cards, and I'm sure Jean-Emmanuel is going to see a lot of play once he hits the game officially. Until then, he'll have to contend with simply trying to win Worlds one more time as himself, but not with himself. Wow, that's not confusing at all. To his credit though, he is number 2 in the Pro Tour field for constructed win rate since 2023, which is pretty darn good. The player that's ahead of him though, yeah, surprising maybe no one, it's this guy. Since we're talking about players with their faces on Magic cards, the only thing more impressive than being one of only 2 2-time MTG world champions would be to be the only 3-time world champ, and Javier Dominguez is the only player currently who can possibly do that. If he is able to win Worlds again, he'd also be the second player in history to ever win the World Championship back-to-back. And as I alluded to, he's just ahead of JED with a whopping 74% constructed win rate since 2023, which is first in this metric. The fact that Javier piloted Jeskai Control to a top 8 in a modern Pro Tour defined by Naru Winged Wisdom should be enough for people to take notice of how talented the Spaniard is, and that's simply one of his 11 top finishes. While his 2025 season hasn't been the best this year, with a couple of finishes out of contention alongside a top 32, Javier is someone that always seems to show up for the World Championship with some extra sauce, and a season of no top 8s seems like just the stage for Dominguez Dominguez to turn the trick again at Worlds 31 and defend his title. Arguably the best Magic player in the world in the modern era, with an astonishing 69% overall win rate since the 2023 return to Tabletop Pro Tours. Javier is someone to always be looking out for. He's just that good. It's funny to think of a player that looked up to players like Kai Bude and John Finkel as he was coming up as a veteran Hall of Famer that many now look up to in turn, but that's exactly the space Reed Duke operates in these days, all while being one of the PT's most stoic and consistent competitors. Reed has not missed a Pro Tour since his debut in Amsterdam 2010, which is a Raphael Levy piece of excellence. It is a delight that a player as talented and gracious as Reed appears at every stop of the Pro Tour, and his Hall of Fame induction is a testament to the consistency he's kept throughout his career. Reed has battled to the peak in every arena imaginable. He's a Magic Online champion, a Legacy Tournament champion, and of course a Pro Tour champion. A player that could beat the brakes off anyone, whether it's 2025 Standard at Worlds or a random game of Dan Dan in a dimly lit hallway. And the best part is that even though he's a stony competitor, Reed still clearly exudes joy for the game. If you want to watch Worlds because you seek to understand the delight that competitive Magic brings to those who consume it, just tune in whenever Reed Duke is playing. Pro Tour mainstay and member of Team Handshake Moxfield, Eli Cassis, to me is the mad scientist of deck choices. He is always playing whatever he thinks the best deck is, even if it's a little off the beaten path. Don't let that fool you though. Eli has been the model of consistency on the Pro Tour since the start of 2023, making the cut at every single PT and Worlds, a fact he shares with a few more people on this list we'll get to. His history playing the complex Insidious Roots combo decks in Standard this past year and going deep in multiple events this season signals to me he's someone you always want to look out for as the final rounds of Swiss approach, and if you're lucky, maybe you can figure out what deck he's decided on before lists are locked for the event, because he almost always picks right. With a 36th and a 19th place in Standard this year alone, if Eli's feeling a format, he's always going to be a threat. A player who debuted at the first Pro Tour I ever watched live on stream, the Time Spiral Limited event in Geneva all the way back in 2007, and it's safe to say Seth Manfield hasn't slowed down since. Like teammate Reed Duke, Seth is now an MTG Hall of Fame boomer who's continued to impress on tour as both a two-time Pro Tour champion and a former world champion, something he almost managed to repeat 10 years later at last year's Worlds in Vegas. A player that has accomplished everything a professional Magic player could ask for and more, still strives to play well and go deep all these years later. Forever a threat at any Magic event, Seth barely missed out on becoming the second two-time world champion a year ago, so he'll have to settle for being the third to ever do it if he wins this year, which is still a ridiculously exclusive club. A player who hadn't been on tour since before the PT's reboot in 2023, despite being a mainstay of the early and mid 2000s and 2010s, Matt Nass qualified for the first Pro Tour of this year, Pro Tour 8th Drift, by top 8ing a qualifying limited championship at a 2024 MagicCon. While he spends significantly more of his time these days running a game company and being a developer than playing Magic professionally, he began the season in Chicago with one simple goal: qualify for the next Pro Tour and try to get himself consistently back to Magic's biggest stage. Well, Matt managed to do a few better than that as he piloted arguably the breakout deck of that event, Domain Overlords, to the bitter end of the event, becoming a Pro Tour champion for the first time ever. Comfortably qualifying for events for the next year, including this World Championship, Nass is a rock-solid limited player and a known brewer in every constructed format he touches. While his success in Chicago ironically came from excellently piloting a meta deck, the landscape of Standard has shifted yet again coming into this year's World Championship, and Nass is always on the lookout for an alternative angle for the constructed rounds. Devilish Dane Simon Nielsen has been Mr. Consistent ever since he burst onto the scene at the 2014 World Magic Cup, the only player to have 4 top finishes in a row before capping off his 6 total Pro Tour top 8s with a breakthrough win thanks to Nadu at Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. While this year has been a bit quieter for Simon on the Pro Tour finishes side of things, Simon is the kind of player that is very good at locking in on the best thing to be doing and piloting it to perfection. So if the refreshed Standard metagame has a clear path forward, it's safe to say he'll find it. Since 2023, he also happens to have the best win rate in the field in Limited at 72%. To put that into perspective, over his last 11 events and those 22 drafts, he 3-0'd 10 of them, which is 3 better than the second place drafter in this field. With Limited being the most important it's ever been at a World Championship, and yet another fresh draft format to dig into, Simon's numbers look incredible. Between his overall playing ability, being surrounded by great teammates on Handshake Moxfield, and stealing the Mangucci family carbonara recipe, Simon has been keeping busy and is looking to cap his year off with a big flourish in Seattle. Like Matt Nass, Ken Yukihiro had a number of top finishes previously on the Pro Tour, with his first one dating all the way back to 2012 in Barcelona at Pro Tour Avicen Restored. Also like Matt Nass, he's a player known for his predilection for brewing up a spicy constructed deck, and strangely still like Matt Nass, ass, he won a Pro Tour this season by abandoning that identity and playing one of the top meta decks. Ken was the lone player standing during the Great Red Standard format of PT Final Fantasy, besting all of the Steel Cutters and VVs while also navigating a sea of mono red mirrors to finally be crowned a champion for the first time in his career. Another player that has demonstrated a mastery of narrower standard formats, historic creativity in others, and tight limited game as recently as the last standard PT. The current biggest winner from this year from Team Moriyama Japan, Ken Yukihiro is always going to be a threat, and one that is more motivated than ever to cap off his season as a Pro Tour champion by also becoming world champion. No one exemplifies the phrase, "always the bridesmaid, never the bride," more than Portugal's Marcio Carvalho, who is a player that has a long professional history with the World Championship specifically. Despite a monstrous amount of top finishes, with his first coming at, you guessed it, Worlds 2005 in Yokohama, Marcio only has 3 wins throughout his now 20-year-long career, with 2 GP wins and a national championship. Despite a stunning competitive resume, Marcio has never won a Pro Tour or World Championship, and it's not for lack of trying. After a quarterfinals exit in his first top 8, Marcio has been in the top 8 for Worlds alone a whopping 3 more times in 2016, 2020, and as recently as 2024. Most players would have a stellar career with 4 Pro Tour top 8s, and Marcio has just that for Worlds alone. Unfortunately, his last 3 Worlds appearances have been heartbreaking, finishing in 2nd place all 3 times. It's hard enough having 9 Pro Tour level top 8s without a win, but to be so close to Magic's most coveted title so many times and never be able to convert is tragedy beyond fate. Perhaps 2025 is the year when Marcio finally puts the last number on his resume, the one he hasn't claimed yet. Like Yukihiro, Yoshihiko Ikawa is another member of the nouveau Japanese powerhouse Team Moriyama Japan, who broke out in part by putting 2 Japanese players in the finals of Pro Tour Outlaws of Thunder Junction. The player who managed to take the hardware home at the end of the day, Yoshihiko Ikawa, beating teammate and 2022 world champion Yuta Takahashi. Given that he debuted on the Pro Tour at Yokohama in 2007, eventually fell off the train and came back into 2024 with the goal of getting back on the Pro Tour, Ikawa's got one of the better comeback stories in modern Magic history. His 2025 hasn't been nearly as impressive, but he qualifies for Worlds 31 off the back of his top 8 finish at last year's Worlds, where he presumably wants to keep the good times rolling and stay on the Pro Tour train a little longer. If he makes it to day 2, by the way, that dream should seem very in reach. Ikawa has made day 2 at 4 out of 7 Pro Tour top 8s since 2023 and has a 75% win rate on day 2, which is the best in the field. Given that his teammate Ken Yukihiro managed to win the middle PT of the season, Ikawa and the rest of Moriyama Japan are one of the big teams to watch coming into this event. Ikawa especially if he finds himself in the latter part of the tournament. Another member of the Moriyama crew, Kenta Harane, is one of the newer faces to the scene, having started playing Magic only around Khans of Tarkir, which came out a shocking 11 years ago now. In the preceding decade though, Harane has found himself among Japan's elite MTG team. His breakout win came hilariously against his teammate and Pro Tour Final Fantasy champion Ken Yukihiro, who just keeps coming up in this video, at the 2020 Players Tour, a more regionally focused competition originally intended to replace the Pro Tour before the circuit's return in 2023. Between that and becoming the Japanese national champion in 2017, which led to a Magic World Cup win with Japan in that same year, Kenta saw quite a lot of success in the pre-2023 era. To be fair to post-2023 Kenta though, he also has a Pro Tour top 8 from this year in additive, navigating the sweet Jeskai Oculus deck into the final day of play around the storm of Domain and Gruul that define that Sunday. In fact, of the 3 Pro Tours he's played in this year, Kenta has a day 3, day 2, and day 1 exit, so it's anyone's guess how his last event of the year is going to shake out. The Estonian Magic Online menace known as Terabad, Karl Sarap is a player that has consistently converted his online efforts into paper Magic, becoming a more recent fixture of the Paper Pro Tour after rapidly accumulating results online, culminating in a top 8 at the online New Capenna Championship. Since then, Karl has made top 8 at the World Championship, also on Magic Arena, in 2022, before his big paper breakthrough at Pro Tour March of the Machine in 2023. While Sarap has already more than proved himself as a worthy competitor at Magic's highest levels, something that his continued dedication to online play certainly contributes to, the momentum he's gained in recent years hasn't lined up yet to push him into the spotlight once more, despite fairly consistent results as a member of Team Handshake Moxfield. Maybe more prescient though, as Sarap is a prolific online player, is the fact that the finals of the very last Pro Tour before Worlds in Atlanta featured Michael Plummer and Francisco Sanchez, 2 different players on different decks who are also known for their prowess on Magic Online. I'm not saying Karl is due, but if you're thinking about the kinds of players that learn new limited and standard formats quickly among some of the best competitors currently on tour in the 3.5 weeks or so that the players will have had to prepare, I'd say the digital players who have the skill, shared knowledge, and volume of games to thrust them into the last big event of the year are at least worth looking at. There's a lot of different things we could say about Japanese legend Shota Yasaoka, like the fact that of the 20 players on this list, Shota is the Japanese player with with the oldest Pro Tour debut, all the way back in 2001 at Pro Tour Barcelona, or that he's a multi-time Pro Tour champion, winning the Team Pro Tour in Charleston in 2006 with the two Tomos, Tomohiro Kaji and Tomoharu Saito, and Pro Tour Kaladesh in Honolulu in 2016 as an individual. We could talk about the fact that Shota has wins or top finishes at Grand Prix, Pro Tours, Worlds, the World's Magic Cup, the Pro Tour Team Series, Mythic Championship, and Arena Championship. But my favorite thing about Shota is that he is a man that is committed to the style of decks he enjoys, and he is one of the best control pilots in the world, if not of all time among the Magic Pantheon. Fun fact, he's also the player in second in this field for draft win rate, right behind Simon Nielsen. Shota's love of control though is best exemplified by his second place finish at the 2012 Players Championship, which was a one-year detour in the naming style for the Magic World Championship, where he piloted an innovative modern deck of his own design called Eternal Command. An Aether Vial control deck that leveraged Eternal Witness and Cryptic Command to lock down the game with an incredible sense of inevitability, all while respecting the speed of Modern by playing efficient creatures and spells. A deck that could approach a game from numerous angles that Shota always managed to masterfully navigate to its event horizon. At the first ever small field style Worlds, with 16 of the game's greats all competing for a singular trophy, Shota dominated, especially in the Swiss, losing only a single match en route to his 11-1 record. The only shame in his performance here was that it just fell short of winning the whole thing, something he'll have another shot at potentially at this World Championship, hopefully with another juicy control brew. While Reed Duke would certainly give him a run for his money in this particular department, Shuhei Nakamura may well be the most liked player on the Pro Tour. Longtime veteran, Hall of Famer, and an absolute maestro at the table no matter the format, stakes, or deck he might be piloting. A player that has many Pro Tour top 8s in both limited formats spanning from 2006 to 2016, and with both Red Deck wins and Blue-Eye Tron in Constructed, among others. And that's without considering that he holds the record for number of Grand Prix top 8s and number of Grand Prix wins, tied with the one and only Kai Bude. Basically, if there's Magic to be played somewhere on the planet, Shuhei Nakamura is probably going to be there duking it out near the top of the standings. Shuhei fans got a recent treat as well at Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, as he spent a heap of time in the feature match area as the lone undefeated player on day one, and was poised to make an incredible 7th career top 8 with a spicy Pinnacle Emissary Affinity deck. Unfortunately, the wheels fell off near the end of day 2, and Nakamura was unable to convert his excellent start to the final day of play. Still, a sharp Shuhei is a pleasure to watch, and his wealth of expertise as a limited player should be something he can rely on, with this event having a greater ratio of limited rounds than usual. While there's no such thing as a player deserving of a championship, Shuhei's incredible resume is only missing a first place finish, and capturing the World Championship would be an incredible way to put an end to that. While I think the collective Magic community is probably most excited to see Kai Bude win another trophy, Shuhei Nakamura might be second in line in that regard. It's a little hard to explain if you're newer to the Pro Tour, but just believe me when I tell you, Shuhei winning is just good for the soul of competitive Magic. As someone that is well and truly an MTG dinosaur, I've been following the Pro Tour for decades at this point, but as someone that became significantly more re-engaged in the Pro Tour in the past year or so, no player has personally fascinated me more than North America's Ian Robb, a young Pokemon TCG player that has taken to competitive Magic just this season, playing in his first ever Pro Tour in Chicago at PT Aetherdrift. Demonstrating an uncanny knack for competitive card games, Ian barely made top 8 on tiebreakers before being dispatched by Matt Nass and some below average draws from his mono red deck. This would be impressive enough on its own. To make top 8 in your debut Pro Tour is not common, but it's also not unheard of. What's really impressive is the fact that in the very next event during a very different standard, Rob would make the top 8 of Pro Tour Final Fantasy, leading the pack through most of the Swiss, with Izzet Prowess improving from 8th to 2nd after his run ended in a blaze of glory courtesy of Ken Yukihiro. While Modern and the Edge of Eternities were not so kind to our young superstar, his track record in Standard in 2025 has been ridiculous, and there'd be no better comeback than a 3rd Standard top finish in a row in as many events. While he won't be able to claim he top 8'd every Pro Tour in a season, something that I'm pretty sure has never happened before, if he is due for another Sunday start, by process of elimination, he's either going to make a semi-final exit or be crowned world champion, something that hasn't happened for a rookie since, I don't know actually, but presumably it's been a while. North America's Michael Plummer finds himself coming into this World Championship in a very rare position, one that only the most recent Pro Tour or World Champion finds themselves in. As the champion of Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, he is currently the only player who could claim back-to-back wins at the Worlds or Pro Tour level, since Kai Bude did it in 2001, and Kai got a team win followed by an individual win. No player has ever won back-to-back individual titles at the highest level. What stood out most to me though about Michael's run in Modern is how he approached picking a deck for such a wide field in such a powerful format. While the last Modern Pro Tour was a bit more centralized, the one with Naru, the format in Atlanta was quite diverse, but at the end of it all, Michael and his Blue Belcher pressure were the ones to triumph over a top 8 of Amulet, Glorious Vengeance, Septuchant Control, and of course other Blue Belcher decks. Michael's deck choice was apparently a simple one for him. He just picked a deck with the best numbers based on his testing. Given that call clearly worked out in Modern, I'm interested to see how he approaches a new standard format and limited format as the defending Pro Tour champion. Michael winning also means that USA has claimed 2 Pro Tour titles this year, with the other going to Japan. Kind of like the back and forth of the early 2000s Pro Tour I grew up watching. Will Japan even up the score? Is the USA so back? Or is Europe gonna do the thing again at Worlds? Only one way to find out. Speaking of Asia's chances at the World Championship, China's Yuchen Liu is another player that has had one hell of a standard season. While his first top 8 came all the way back in 2017 at Pro Tour Aether Revolt, 8 years later, he doubled that number, joining Ian Robb as the only player to top 8 both standard Pro Tours this year. 2025 has been a year of red cards being, excuse the pun, red hot, and Liu spent his time mastering the powerful Bloomborough Mouse monstrous raid strategies to back-to-back Sundays. With the standard landscape largely changed since then, if you can find a pocket of the metagame where he feels comfortable and continue his generally good form in Limited, he may well find himself playing standard on Sunday for the 3rd time this year. While his loss to Ken Yukihiro at PT Final Fantasy would have stung after a small but cascading error made all the difference in their 5-game semi-final, Liu's consistency has been really impressive this season, which is made even more mind-boggling to me when I consider that he doesn't really have any teammates or team to speak of. Unlike Magic's 4 major elemental nations, Liu is mostly a lone wolf, which in this day and age is a rarity we haven't seen since Sean McClaren's legendary run in 2014. A decade later, maybe Yuchen Liu can do it as well. While the literal trademark yellow hat that France's Gabriel Yellow Hat Nassif is known for is seemingly more a thing of the past, the fact that he's even on this list of qualified players for Worlds in 2025 is mind-blowing to me. A player whose first Pro Tour win came at a team limited event 20 years ago in 2005 to still have success as consistently as he has had is one of the reasons he is a legend and still widely regarded as one of the best players of all time, particularly in Constructed. While this season he hasn't cracked through to the final day to continue pumping up his double-digit Pro Tour top 8 numbers, that consistency is the reason he's here at the World Championship, finishing in the money at every Pro Tour this year, going 46th, 85th, and 12th across Chicago, Vegas, and Atlanta, with his modern outing being particularly notable for the hand he had in designing the Azorius Blink Quantum Riddler deck that a good chunk of his team saw success on. In my opinion, Nassif is at his best when he's attacking a metagame with a deck that's suited to his style, especially if the control shells he's been great with for decades are well positioned, even if they're not the outright best decks. While the jury is still out on how the shakeups will exactly affect Standard, Nassif aiming for another good finish with a rejuvenated Constructed format and a fresh Limited format should be an exciting prospect for any Magic fan. Croatian Tony Portolan has had an incredibly consistent season. Since the return to tabletop in 2023, Tony has only played in 3 Pro Tours, all this year, but he has amassed a staggering 68% win rate. While his ticket to the World Championship was punched after his top 4 finish at Pro Tour Final Fantasy as one of the many players on Is It Prowess opting for the Monastery Swiftsphere version as his main differentiator, his consistency meant he likely would have qualified on points anyway. Apart from his top 8, the first top finish of his career mind you, he finished 16th at Pro Tour Aether Drift as a very competent pilot of Esper Pixie, and while many of the standard success stories and Worlds qualified players stumbled during the season's Modern Pro Tour, Tony continued his form on Is It Affinity just outside of the top 32 in 33rd place. For a short while, it felt like Tony was one of the best players on tour who didn't have a Pro Tour top 8, and even that is something that changed quickly. Someone who is likely to show up in the feature match area battling to the bitter end, and with how much of a roller coaster we've been on this year in terms of standard, Tony's record across all those different shifts makes him a player to keep your eyes on this Worlds. Now here's a player that knows what they like. Like Shota earlier, there's great joy in a player that has a style and sticks to it, and if we snapshot Brazilian William Araujo's 2025, there is a very consistent through line. He likes the red cards that turn sideways. Like many players who found success in this year of Standard, William utilized the powerful, now banned core of Monstrous Rage and Heartfire Hero in both of his efforts at Pro Tour Aether Drift and Pro Tour Final Fantasy, losing a win-in both times to Yuchen Liu in Chicago and Tony Portolan in Vegas. Not to be deterred though, he geared up for Modern as one of the 12 players on the only real aggressive deck in the format Domain Zoo and managed to finish 85th. He was also a Brazilian regional champion in 2023, besting the field with once again the format's most aggressive deck, Boros Convoke. A player that has beaten plenty of big names already. With how close he's gotten this season alone, it feels like only a matter of time before he busts through with whatever aggro deck happens to be available in the metagame. With the landscape of Standard though being very different from the Pro Tours Williams saw success with earlier, it remains to be seen if the metagame will settle to a point where aggro will have the same potency it's had before, but if anyone is going to settle on the go sideways strategy for Worlds, it's going to be Brazil's beatdown Baron. And that's 20 players for you to sink your teeth into for this upcoming World Championship, although I would be remiss if I didn't tack on one particular honorable mention. competition. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Magic legend, Kaibude, whose time-defying top 8 last year in Vegas put him in a 3-way race to be the next 2-time world champion. While his campaign fell short, his performance felt like the clock was getting turned back to when the Juggernaut couldn't lose on the last day of a PT. That performance did qualify him for this world championship, but sadly, for pretty understandable reasons that are presumably tied to his current health, he's chosen not to attend this Worlds. Trust me, I would have covered him if he was. At least someone will get to win the trophy that literally has his name on it, as the Player of the Year award gets handed out at the conclusion of Worlds, in a race that is also looking like the last event of the year is going to make or break its recipient. So that's it. Hopefully your appetite for Worlds 31 has been whet. Whether you're brand new to watching high-level Magic, a regular of the channel, a veteran of competition, or just a curious Commander player, I can tell you that watching the best players in the world fight for the most coveted title in Magic is a beautiful spectacle well worth your time. If you want to watch live, you absolutely should, and you can do so at twitch.tv/magic or youtube.com/@play_MTG. The action starts at 2 PM Eastern, 8 PM Central, and 4 AM the next day, Japan Standard Time on Friday and Saturday, before the year's final top 8 begins an hour earlier at 2 PM EST on Sunday. If you happen to be watching this video and the tournament has already happened, consider it a sign to check out the archive coverage from the event and dive into the world of competitive Magic. And now that you hopefully know a few more players than you did before, you'll enjoy it even more. So who'd I miss? I had to cut the list off somewhere, so get in the comments and let me know which player I didn't have that you're watching this World Championship. As always, if you want to support the channel, watching, liking, subscribing are all things you can do for free, but if you do want to contribute even more than that, I have both a Patreon and a Ko-fi that you can check in the description below. And if this video made you want to watch even more Pro Tours or Worlds of past, future, and present, you should watch this video.